Hello friendos and randos, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about the initial BDIF of OP05 that has since been overshadowed, Purple Luffy, or as it is so lovingly called in the East, at least in Singapore, PCP, Perfect Curve Purple. So there's a very clear reason for this, and I will be telling you a little bit more about how the deck works as well as the different cards that are included in the deck, why it was so dominant at the start of the format, and then of course how the deck has kind of shifted in order to deal with the new best deck in format, which is of course the OP05 Sakazuki deck. So let's get right into it. So here we are. First off, we're going to start with what is the bread and butter of this deck, vanilla. 4-cost vanilla, we're running a total of 6 copies. So we have of course the page 1, and I'm running Sphinx because I like his silly face. Theoretically, I think the best option for a 4-cost vanilla is theoretically Apu, but I don't care, I like Sphinx, so we will be going with him. So the key strength of Luffy, of course, is his ability to ramp right off of the second turn, and this is also without the need of an extra card. So his effect is activate main once per turn. You may take the top card of your life to your hand, and then if you have 0 or 3 or more Dawn, then you can add 1 active Dawn. So the key thing is that the Dawn comes in active. So on the 3 Dawn turn, you get an additional Dawn, and then you can play down a 4-cost vanilla or another 4-cost unit, which is really powerful compared to many other decks that usually won't be able to play down a 6k power unit on the 3 Dawn turn. So that's why currently we're running 6 of the 4-cost vanilla. And of course with the page 1, we're also running an ulti as the 2k counter in order to supplement it and be able to also use that combo and drop both ulti and page 1 down at the same time. Generally, this is not something you want to do on the 4 Dawn turn. It's probably something you want to do on like 9 or maybe 10 Dawn, so that when you go down the Dawn, you will still be able to continue to build board or to play your perfect curve purple or your PCP as we say. Especially against Sakazuki, it's really much better to play this down on 9 or 10 Dawn instead, because you do want to be flooding the board. So for example, on your 9 Dawn turn, you would play down a 5-cost unit and then ulti page 1, so you would have a 3 white board, and that would be very difficult for even Sakazuki to manage. Alright, next is 2 of the 4-cost Khalifa as one of the other 2k counters we're running. So this deck is going to be running a lot of 2k counters in order to protect our units and keep them on the board. The main reason for this is this deck actually has a pretty good matchup into a lot of decks in the format, especially yellow NL and yellow Katakuri, and the main deck it struggles into is Sakazuki. So one of the key things is when Sakazuki uses Houndblaze and then hits your characters or your board, they're always going to be hitting for 8k or more. 8k on the leader or 6k on the brand new, for example. So 2k counter cards are actually very important in that matchup, so we're actually going to be running quite a lot of them. We're also running the 5-cost X-Drake here. X-Drake is again a 2k counter card, but on top of that, his Dawn -1 effect causes your opponent to discard 1 card, which can be very strong into Sakazuki in particular. And otherwise, he is still a 5k beater, which is very good because you don't need to attach Dawn in order to give pressure. The next 2k counter we're running is Franosuke, who is Carpenter in this sense, but he is the OP05 new Straw Hat 2k counter for purple, and his effect is Dawn ×1. If you have 8 or more Dawn, this character gains Rush. So he is a 6-cost 5k power Rush unit, which is not great, but can still be useful in niche situations, which is why I prefer running him instead of any of the other 2k counters. And then lastly, for defense, we also have 2 of the Jet Gatling as another counter card in order to help protect our board, as well as to get rid of the no counter cards, which this deck does run quite a few of, as you'll be seeing very shortly. Okay, so next up is some of the more key cards in the deck as well. Other defensive cards. Other than the 2k counters, we also have a decent amount of blockers. So first we have the 4-cost ST10 Trafalgar Law. His effect is, of course, Dawn ×1. You may, if your opponent has 7 cards in hand, then you may choose 2 for them to discard. You don't look at the hand, of course, but you do get your opponent to randomize their hand, and after you pick 2 out. And it can be really crucial or clutch at times if it hits 2 key cards from your opponent, for example. So we're running 4 of him. Some decks were also running 4 of the Uta blocker instead at the early stages of OP05, but because of Sakazuki's dominance in general, having cards with on-play effects is probably much stronger in general. Next up is 4 of the 5-cost Queen. Of course, this card again helps you to cycle. It's a 5-cost blocker. It also lets you draw a card and discard, draw 2 cards and discard 1. So it helps you cycle out no counter cards. I realize all the cards here are with counter, but I deliberately saved the no counter cards for later still. So this is one of the key blockers in the deck, and it also synergizes really well with the next card, which is the 5 cost OP05 kit, whose effect is blocker, and once per turn, during your turn, if you do Dawn minus anything, you get 1 active Dawn back. So it works really well in conjunction with any of these other units. So you can drop Kit and then Law, and then you get 1 Dawn back on your 9 Dawn turn. Then you can swing 6k with your leader, or with attach the Dawn to one of your units, for example. So the most standard play you will see on 10 Dawn is normally Kit plus Queen, and then you will get the Dawn back and be able to swing for 1 extra Dawn, and you'll also get to draw cards and whatnot. Another key combo with the 5 cost kit is also the 7 cost kit, which we will show again in a bit. But first, we will talk about some of the no counter units now that are what makes the deck a bit vulnerable to breaking. So first off is the 5 cost Magellan. Magellan is really good in general. It does really well in not just the mirror, but also against yellow, against Sakazuki. It does really well. In particular, if you're able to drop 2 of them on your 10 Dawn turn, it's really painful for Sakazuki to manage that, assuming you do go first. So one of the PCP, Perfect Curve Purple ways of playing is to go 4 cost vanilla into the next card which we have, which is Pauli. So Pauli is a 5 cost unit whose effect is on play, you pay 2 Dawn, and then after that you ramp 1 active Dawn and KO a opponent's 4 cost unit. So one of the key PCP combos is 4 cost vanilla on your 3 Dawn turn, and then on your next turn you take your life again, play down Pauli, and you can KO any 4 costs that your opponent does put down, and then also ramp yourself to 10. And your next turn you can play down 2 Magellans and lock your opponent at 6 Dawn for 1 turn. So having 2 consecutive 6 Dawn turns, especially against Sakazuki, is really strong because they can't easily answer the 2 Magellans, because they wouldn't have the 7 cost Borsalino. If they were to try and do something with Ruchi, they would have to again deramp. If they have if they have Hound Blaze, they can generally only remove 1 of these cards, and they would have to burn 2 Hound Blazes in order to get rid of them. So in general, this PCP combo, 4 costs into Pauli into double Magellan, is really powerful going first. Even going second is still really good, although the Sakazuki will have the opportunity to go to 7 Dawn. It's still powerful in the sense that it lets you remove their options with how many Dawn they have to play with. Okay, and then the last few cards we're running are firstly the 3 of the 7 cost kit. 7 cost kit is not as great into Sakazuki as compared to other options here, but it's very good in general against every other deck as well as the mirror. One key thing is that if you're using it along with the 5 cost kit, it's really powerful because, for example, you can go 5 Dawn if you're going second, on your 5 Dawn turn you can play down the kit, and then on the 7 Dawn turn you can play down the kit and get 1 Dawn back, which is pretty strong. Alternatively, if you're going first, you can play 4 costs into 7 cost kit, and on your next turn where you have 8 Dawn after using the kit's effect, if you drop the kit, then you use the kit to attack, you get 1 Dawn back and you can drop another 4 cost. So all in all, it's a very strong synergy with the deck as well. Keeps your leader more healthy, which makes these 2k counters even more valuable as well, and it also makes a lot of your units from 6k, it makes you more comfortable to attack with the 6k units, since they do have the same power line as your leader. So it's whatever, even if you do swing with them, you're not too worried. Okay, last few cards we have. Firstly, we have 9 cost Kaido. I have 2 of them in this deck here. Generally, the number of this card has dropped significantly because of how the meta has shifted more towards Sakazuki. You don't want to be doing Dawn -5 many times in a game, and you're probably not going to be able to do Dawn -5 many times in one game. So we're using it primarily as a finisher to get rid of blockers like Rebecca, or in the mirror, the kid or the queen, and then using that to pressure. And to add on to the finisher, I like my individual one-off spice as always, so I do have one of the Gear 5th Luffy card. I think it's really powerful as a finisher, especially if you do still have life remaining, because if you drop it and then after that your whole board has already swung once, you drop it, you go Dawn -10, your leader effect gives you 1 Dawn, the Luffy puts you at 2 already, and then next turn you start with your turn again and you're already on 4 Dawn. With the Luffy's effect you're on 5 Dawn, and the turn after you're already back at 7, which is really good. So I think these are the three like big units that I'm running. You could always just run 3 Kaido instead, but I like to have the spicy one off just to surprise people. As always, as you're familiar with my Rush of Soap Sakazuki. And then the last 2 cards are something that that most of the Purple Luffy players have been tagging in order to be able to handle Sakazuki as well as the mirror, which is 2 cost Sheep's Horn. This event card is Dawn -1. Rest one of your opponent's cost 6 or lower characters. So it can rest almost every blocker that is kind of played in the meta. So Rebecca, Sabo, Borsalino, etc, etc. And the reason it's played is of course because it can handle those blockers better. Another key thing is that on your 10 Dawn turn, for example, you are able to use this to deal with a board of Rebecca plus Borsalino in conjunction with the 9 cost Kaido. So assuming 10 Dawn, you use 2 Dawn to play Sheep's Horn and go Dawn -1, leaving you at 8 active Dawn. Then using your leader effect, you grab 1 life and ramp 1 active, and then you cast Kaido, and Kaido gets rid of 6 cost or lower blocker. So you can handle 2 6 cost blockers using this Sheep's Horn plus Kaido combo, which is really potent, especially if you already have a board on the field. So this is basically the play lines and the deck build for Purple Luffy. You do notice I'm running a lot of 2k counters, so 12 plus 2, 14 in total, along with 2 additional Jet Gatling. You can also swap out more of the 2k counters for Jet Gatling, but I felt like just having 2ks is really good as well. There are a lot of no counter cards in total, so there is 4, 8, 12, 14, 16 total no counter cards. This is a little bit more painful for Luffy than other decks in the meta like Sakazuki or Katakuri or Enel with inbuilt filtering of some form, whether it's through their leader effects or through triggering cards. But it is kind of the deck build that you do need in order to be able to compete with these decks as well. An alternative, of course, if you don't want to run so many no counters, is to replace the 7 cost kit with a 7 cost vanilla Urashima. Urashima is pretty good in the mirror, especially because it isn't able to be KO'd easily by 9 cost Kaido, and it can also in the mirror hit into your opponent's 9 cost Kaido fairly easily. With only 1 Dawn, it will be equal power with the Kaido, so that's very, very strong as well. All in all, this is basically the general Purple Luffy build in terms of the lines of play. Going first, normally what you're looking for is 4 cost vanilla into either Pauli or 7 cost kit, into either double 5 cost or 9 cost Kaido, or into something like that or the other. One funny line of play is of course 4 cost into Pauli into Gear 5th Luffy, and you can use the Gear 5th Luffy as just a vanilla or as Onigashima per se. So you can drop the Gear 5th Luffy and then next turn you drop the Kaido, and that the Gear 5th Luffy will give you 1 Dawn back with his leader effect after with his activate main effect, which is to rest 1 Dawn and get 1 active Dawn. Going second, similarly, the play is 4 Dawn turn, take 1 life, and then drop a 5 cost unit. Then from there you can drop a 7 cost unit, or you can take a life and even drop 2 4 cost vanillas or something like that. And then the next turn you'll have 10 Dawn, you can drop Kaido, or you can drop 2 of the 5 cost units again. So at the end of the day, all of the units here have at least 4 to 5k power, which are able to really hit into your opponent well and to continuously put up that pressure. The key strength for Purple Luffy is being able to play large units that are difficult to handle before your opponent can develop their own large units to manage them. So that is why Purple Luffy did have all of that strength at the start of the format. The Sakazuki meta has changed this slightly. By having easier ways to deal with this whiteboard as well as to provide more aggression, and that's why the Purple Luffy build has kind of changed in order to manage that as well. All that said, thank you friendos and randos for coming. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you do still try to win with Purple Luffy, although he has become a lot less popular over the course of OP05. I think he's still a very, very powerful leader. His effect, of course, is strong and consistent, and he does well into the decks that are trying to counter Sakazuki in Katakuri and Enel. So he is definitely still a strong pick. That being said, friendos and randos, thank you so much for watching the video. I will see you guys again next time. Bye bye.